Every time I see a bombing in a TV show or a movie, it's triggering. It's weird because I don't have any memory of the bombing that I was injured in, but I think in a way maybe that's why it's even more triggering, because I spent so long trying to remember. I would imagine what it would have been like. I tried to think about what the restaurant looked like, how far away the bomb was, and what it would have sounded like. All these really traumatic, horrible things, because it's one of the most impactful moments of my life and I don't remember it. So that's weird. So every time I see a bombing depicted in a TV show or movie, it's terribly triggering, and it happened just a couple days ago. I'm at a cabin in the woods right now, and I thought that this would be a cool place to talk about something emotional. This stuff is hard to talk about. A lot of stuff around being an amputee from a bombing is emotional to talk about, and it's stuff I haven't talked about in depth with that many people. Yeah. So I'm doing it now, and I thought this would be a nice place. But just before we came here, Patrick and I, my husband, were watching Homeland, and we've just gotten hooked, kind of going through all the different TV shows now that there's not as much going on and not as much to do. So Homeland's the new one, and we're a couple episodes in. Spoiler alert, there's a bombing, okay? And it's jarring. It's really jarring. And there are people out and about living their daily lives and going for a stroll. And it's a very innocent scenario. It's not like in a war zone. It's at a fountain. And then this bomb goes off. And there's so much to this. I think that the way that they depicted it was with a good degree of seriousness and horror, as one should. But they didn't focus on any of the people who lost limbs or died. And they had people floating around with missing limbs. Floating around. It's a weird way to say it. But side note, I really hope they used actual amputees, because I feel quite strongly that people who are representing a race, gender, disability, ability, whatever, should be of that. They should be representing themselves. I don't know. Like a person who can hear pretending to be deaf when they could have cast a deaf person. You know what I mean? Anyways. So hopefully those are real amputees, but there are amputees shambling around, and it was horrifying, but it was very much in passing. Like, oh, there's a guy with a bloody stump of an arm and stuff, and that's... I don't know what it's like for other people who weren't in a bombing and didn't lose a limb, but for me, then I spent the next couple minutes fixated on that character. Like, is that guy okay? I know it's made up, but you know what I mean? It's like, oh, all those people. And Homeland is definitely focusing on ending terrorism and the fight against terrorism, right? That's the whole spiel of the show. But there have been shows and movies that I've watched that trivialize violence towards innocent bystanders. The one that I remember most vividly, I'll age myself here, but it was one of the Mission Impossible, if not the first Mission Impossibles, maybe the second. But it was the first action movie that I went to after the bombing. And the lead character, Tom Cruise, was inflicting harm upon people. Like, some of the things that he was doing was hurting innocent bystanders. There were people getting killed and harmed, and they didn't focus on this at all, and I found that incredibly distressing. So here's the reality of being a bombing survivor. Whenever I see this in a TV show, I'm triggered. And it's weird because I spent so long trying to remember what it was like, what happened. I've never managed to remember, by the way. I don't know why. Head injury or amnesiatic drugs, I don't know. I can't remember anything. But I spent so long trying to remember that oftentimes these TV show and movie interpretations of it are sort of what I envisioned to try and remember this thing that happened. So it's as real as what happened to me, and I have no way to escape that. So that's the thing. I spent so long trying to remember what it was like, trying to imagine, envisioning the restaurant and what it's like to be blown up, because although I have been blown up, I have the results of it, the evidence, but I don't have any of the memory. And so all I have to go on is movies and TV shows and accounts from other people. So when I see these things, when I see these movies and TV shows that so vividly depict an action like this, I relive it as much as I ever could, because it's all the memory I have of it, which is none. So when we saw the bombing in Homeland, I was cuddling Patrick on the couch, and it was a nice evening watching a show that we were really into, and then all of a sudden it was horrifying, you know? And the pain that I had in my leg that was a 4 or 5 5, which is an ignorable level of pain, suddenly became very present because it had visually become present. You know what I mean? And on top of that, then I feel for Patrick too, because he's an incredibly caring individual who cares deeply for the fact that I went through something so difficult and that my family went through something so difficult. So when we see something like the bombing that was depicted and people are crying and children are crying and screaming, he thinks about my mom and about me, and he hurts because he couldn't do anything about it because he didn't know me yet. But either way, it turns a simple TV show into kind of a weird evening, you know? There was another bombing in the show, but they don't actually show you the explosion. They show you the aftermath. For some reason, that was a little less triggering. Seeing the explosion, that was rough. And that brings me to my PSA. In Homeland, the bomb was delivered by a person carrying a briefcase, and they handed it to someone, and then it was ignited. In actuality, my bombing was delivered in a bag. It was a pipe bomb delivered in a bag to the restaurant where I was working. So the PSA is, don't be afraid to call out something that looks suspicious. If there's a bag left unattended, call it out, report it to security, no matter what, okay? Don't think to yourself, oh, it's got little pink stars on it, it's probably a kid's bag. It doesn't matter. You're either teaching a kid a lesson that they have to keep their possessions with them, or you're helping prevent a terrorist attack. This is something that's done, delivering bombs in bags. Back in South Africa, I was part of a campaign to try and make people aware of this. Don't touch bags. If you see a bag by itself, report it. This is something I've done a lot. Me, Patrick, my mom, my sister, we've all been affected by this, and we've all reported bags left unattended. Unfortunately, there wasn't a bomb in it, but don't be afraid to call stuff out. Anyways, here we are at a cabin, not thinking about bombings. Well, yes, I am right now because I'm shooting this video, but I'm gonna go have some hot chocolate on a camp stove. So I think sometimes that good writing, great movies and shows can bring light to social issues and draw attention to things that need to be focused on and do a lot of good. And sometimes it's just a little too close for comfort. Anyways, thank you so much for hanging out with me today, hearing about this. Maybe you have something that gets triggered too when you watch TV or movies. If you feel comfortable, I hope you share it down below. Maybe someone else shares that. Maybe you share mine. Anyways, wherever you are, I hope you're having the best day that you possibly can. Be kind to the people around you. And thanks for hanging out.